Today we're gonna speak with Kevin. He is an airline pilot. I met him at a program called, it was like a meeting event called Tuskegee Next. I met him when I was in high school. I met him. It was a long time ago, honestly. It wasn't that long ago, but it was kind of a while ago. Anyway, so we're just gonna talk to him, hear about his story, and see if there's any advice that he can give, give us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. There we go. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I can't complain.
First things first, I just want to thank you for, taking the time to, get on this and do this interview with me. I know you're a busy person, so I do appreciate it, honestly.
No, it's a pleasure thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're definitely one of the people who I look up to, another Black pilot and, flying, big jets for a living. I feel like, you can't beat that, honestly.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
All right. So just tell me a little bit about yourself. And the last time, we kind of spoke, I think you were freshly out of SIU, maybe 2-3 years out of SIU. I don't know if you were at a regional, but you were flying. So since then, what have you been up to?
So since SIU, I went to Republic Airways for a little bit, and I was kind of on the management side. So I helped lead a flight program for about a year and a half. And then I transitioned and I started flying for a Part 135 air carrier out of Alaska, just doing some small stuff in the Piper lands to some of the villages. And then I also did some on-demand cargo operations on the Embraer 120 out of Texas. And now I'm in my current job, which is I fly Embraer 145s and 135s out of the state of California primarily. So.
Cool. What's your earliest memory of aviation? What got you into aviation?
So honestly, it's something I've always really wanted to do. I can fondly look back, and one of my first memories is me getting ready to go non-rev on a United flight. I was in preschool, and I had to change into some business casual clothes from preschool clothes. That's literally my earliest memory in life. It's something I've always wanted to do. So
then it was just you knew pilot is what it was. Pilot is what you
wanted
to do.
My mom tells me when I was 1 and 2, I had airplanes in my hand and I would look up at the sky. So yeah, it's something that's always been, kind of my path, I guess.
Yeah. So, since you're up there right now, you're flying the Embraer. What in your opinion was your hardest rating from private to instrument and beyond?
I would say the hardest rating was instrument because it's a lot to conceptualize. And it's basically taking out your eyes out of the equation, right? Because you can't see anything. And so it was a lot of, okay, how do I rethink about these things, right? We're so used to they teach you, look out the airplane, see what's in front of you. And now it's all of a sudden, trust the airplane, look at the instruments. And so it's a totally new way of thinking and just analyzing the situation. Right. So that was definitely the hardest one.
Okay. So as a minority pilot, has there been a time in your career that you've been treated differently from others?
I would have to say just, as a Black man in America, I think in all facets of life, right? There's going to be situations that I've encountered that I've been treated differently or people have kind of dispositions towards me. So yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What's some advice that you would give yourself? Since obviously, you're successful, you've made it. What's some advice that you would give yourself, your past self, just starting out? Just getting into your flight training?
I think one of the things, and something that I'm still grappling with today, right, is the idea of things being comfortable. We always think of things or we always seek comfort in things, right? But you also have to trust that your journey, right, to your goal, your career goal, or your financial goals, or your family goals, there's going to be periods where you're uncomfortable, right? There's going to be periods where you're unfamiliar, but then that's when you really have to take a step back. You really have to trust your process. You have to trust your journey and what you're doing to set yourself up and say, hey, you know what? This period may not be the most comfortable, right? I may have to move to a different city, or I may have to, sacrifice a ton of money to get this next rating or whatever it may be. I have to work 2 jobs. but just trust that process, right? That hopefully through your sacrifice, that your goal will come to fruition quicker, or that you are solidifying the fact that you will achieve your goal, right? You'll bring that to fruition.
Right.
So,
I like that. I like that a lot, honestly. So since I'm, beginning stages, and obviously my end goal is the airlines. What's some advice that I guess you would give me in my private pilot license?
So in your private pilot's license, the biggest thing is set the foundation, right? I think there's this thing, and one of the ways I used to think about aviation is, well, is this applicable? Are the airlines doing this? But no, it's all about the foundation, right? Everything that you learn in your private, you may not take to your career, right? But hey, this is setting the foundation. So the habits that you learn, the study habits that you pick up and you employ, all of that will set the foundation, right? Because we're definitely getting into a job where your initial ratings are the start, right? But you then have to still get your type ratings. You still have your annual check rides. Like I have mine next month, my recurrent, right? So, it's about staying in the book, staying abreast of things and aware of things, right? Because honestly, that's our job, right? Is to essentially make sure that the public knows that they are safe when they fly. So really set that foundation, have the good habits that will then carry you through your career.
You went to SIU, and I mean it's not like uncommon at all. Like everyone knows flight training is expensive, So how did you pay for your flight training?
So I didn't have the traditional path when it especially comes to paying for my flight training, right? Like you just said, it's a very arduous and demanding task to pay and allocate all that money for flight training, right? And so it's a combination of loans for me. It was a combination of scholarships, and family help out. So it was a lot that culminated to help me pay for my flight training. So really explored a lot of different opportunities and avenues to make it happen.
So with that being said, like I know one, I don't want to say like fear, but one like kind of like uncertainty a lot of people have is like, is this going to be, like detrimental to my financial future? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like, like it was worth, taking all the loans out and all the work that you put in and to be where you're at now?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I often think about, because I'm in the process of, paying that stuff back now. But I think a lot of people, right, when they talk about a career versus a job, right, is a career is something that when you wake up, right, and I'm not trying to get too like philosophical with it, but when you wake up and you're going to work, you're happy doing it, right? And so for me, it's not just, I have a job or I have I'm doing something to make money, but it's something I'm passionate about. It's something that I love. So every day, I think it's worth it because not only is it something that sustains me financially, but it's also something that I love doing. So I think that's really all you can ask for in life. So yeah.
Absolutely. Obviously, flying is something that, you love, but has there been a time that, you've experienced a failure that, has kind of made you maybe not doubt, but kind of shake your foundation?
Yeah, I actually had a situation where, and I think this happens through everyone's career, right? My initial training, I had a hiccup in training and I had to learn from that, right? And, I kind of look at that failure now as something different, right? I look at it as something I almost needed. So it was the attitude or the fear that I brought into that check ride that caused me, that anxiety that I brought into that check ride that caused me to have hiccup, right? I was so scared of the unknowns of what I couldn't control that I couldn't focus on what I could control, right? Or the fact that I could fly the airplane safely, that I knew the knowledge, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. I think for me, you have to take those failures, right? And those doubts you have, and how do I refocus into something that's positive, something that I control? So now for me, that lesson of that feeling of, I'm so nervous because there's things that could happen during this check ride that I can't control. I say, okay, cool. Instead of me focusing on just that, let's focus on the elements that I can control. So if it's rather me knowing the SOP in and out, whether it's me knowing the GOM in and out, if it's me knowing every system in this airplane, thoroughly, right? those are things that I can control, and those are things that are going to give me peace and comfort. So now walk in this area of unfamiliarity, I'm able to handle it, I'm able to tackle it. So yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So now, like, you know, with the pandemic and everything going on now, and it's kind of changing, you know, the industry, how has that kind of affected you since you have flown pre-pandemic and you're now flying in the pandemic, you know? So what kind of changes have you, you know, seen in your day-to-day?
So yeah, absolutely. I think passenger loads across the board right now are a little thinner than they previously were. There's additional safety procedures and precautions in place. And then we've also had to deal with, you know, we have friends all throughout this industry, right? And there are a lot of people that have been either displaced or people that have had to move as a result of this. A lot of different things at play here. And so, yeah, I think the word that comes to mind for me is the ability to be fluid, right? And the ability to, this is when you have this network, you have this support group that you have in place, right? Your friends and stuff. And so now it's a matter of us as pilots kind of coming together and supporting one another, right? I've had friends at other airlines that have been, like I told you, displaced out of bases, or they unfortunately, you know, been furloughed from their company, right? So now it's just, you know, supporting one another, right? So being fluid, being able to change and being dynamic.
Like the last time we spoke, it was at the Tuskegee Next program at Lewis. And I remember I was like dead set on going to Lewis University. So why did you choose SIU? Since there's a bunch of other, you know, universities out there that provide the same training, you know, what caught your attention with SIU?
So for me, I always knew that I wanted to be an airline guy. That is the part and the facet of aviation that I've always been attracted to. Flying the big jets with the uniform, just the prestige of it, because that's what I remember as a kid. And SIU actually had an opportunity to come down an American Airlines jet out of O'Hare and tour the campus, right? And you got to see that the biggest thing for me is my end goal is the airlines, right? So I want to see how this step culminates in me getting there, right? And I kind of saw that day, which was there was a ton of alumni that were all successful in the industry, that all had, you know, used this stepping stone to get where they wanted to be. And so I said, I think this is the place for me. And it actually turned out to be a really good decision.
Yeah, that's great. So with that being said, like who do you think has influenced you the most with your journey?
So I have several people, but I'll keep it short. One of my strongest mentors and closest mentors was Milton Williams. He was an original Tuskegee Airman. And I think his words, like I told you, right, it's still things I'm trying to grapple with, but he talked about periods of being truly uncomfortable, right? Through his process, right? As we know, the Tuskegee Airmen did not have an easy training process. They did not go through the easiest journey to get to where they were, right? And so he talked about that, right? And he essentially he gave me and instilled in me the sense of perseverance, right? And the sense of you can do it, right? If you apply yourself and you set up yourself with a trajectory and a path to success, well, then that's what's going to happen, right? And so I think that's kind of what I got from him. And then another one of my close mentors, who is the leader of the Chicago Untitled Chapter of Tuskegee Airmen, is Ken Rapier. And Ken Rapier has really taught me the idea of selflessness, right? The idea that, you know, my journey was, you know, not always the easiest, right? It wasn't always clear. I just, you know, was like, hey, I'm going to do CFI, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? I just had money to throw at it, right?
Right.
And so he taught the idea of selflessness and bringing up the next, you know, people behind you, right? And just kind of keeping that close connection and that close grab. And I think that's something that has really carried me throughout my journey, right? There's, you know, people at my airline professionally that have, you know, really, when I was a first officer, they took me under my wing and were teaching me things to make me a captain, right? And to mold me into a captain. And so that's some of the things I do to certain people in my airline is, hey, you know what? Let's just support each other, right? Because we all need. So yeah, it's kind of the biggest thing, selflessness. Yeah.
Wow, that's super cool. So you said that you were flying in Alaska. Many times, you know, I've heard pilots say like flying in Alaska is like true flying. You know what I mean? So kind of explain how flying in Alaska is different than flying in, I guess somewhere that's, um, I guess more populated, I guess.
So I think down here in the lower 48, we have a ton of support systems. And you know that you have, ATC or other airplanes, or, we have the autopilot. We have all of this stuff to protect us, right? And insulate us, right? So you get this sense of security, right? In Alaska, it's a little bit different, right? So you'll leave a big metropolis like Fairbanks or Anchorage or somewhere kind of more, populated. But once you start going about 50 to 100 miles away from there, you then kind of quickly realize it's a different scenario, right? Which is largely when you leave, you're carrying a survival bag. When you leave, you may not be able to get in control in contact with ATC. I think in certain parts I was flying, I'm flying a Piper Land, it's unpressurized, right? I'm really below 10,000 feet. ATC in certain areas, because of the mountains, you couldn't pick them up. I mean, you could barely pick them up at 11. You really weren't picking them up to 13.5. So it's one of those things of self-reliance. And I think you also get very comfortable making decisions, right? You always talk about like ADM, aeronautical decision making, but that's really what it is, right? It's not book, it's not theory, it's what do I do in this current situation to keep myself safe and keep my passengers safe?
Wow.
So that's kind of Alaska in a nutshell. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not necessarily like reassuring, but it's good to hear like, the stuff that you're learning isn't just like, filler or just, there just to be there, like it's actually there to, keep you safe, keep the passengers safe, and make you a great pilot. So what is your favorite plane for one, and a plane that is on your bucket list to fly?
Ooh, that's a good one. So my favorite plane is also probably my bucket list plane. Ever since I was young, I've literally loved Airbuses, right? So I would love to hop in like an Airbus A320neo one day and just, do a transcon. That would be it for me. But I think currently right now, honestly, I'd have to say the Embraer 135 is my favorite airplane. It's one of those airplanes where you're really in control, right? We don't have the auto throttle. We don't have all of the VNAV systems. And so when you're coming down a SID, or we're coming down on a star, rather, you're going up on a SID, you're really controlling and manipulating that power, those power levers. You are really in control of the airplane. A lot of the stuff we do for my company are visual approaches. So, some of those require, disengaging the autopilot and just flying the airplane to the runway. So you really get this manual feel that you are still flying the airplane, right? So,
Wow. That is, that's exciting. Some people say like, oh, like I hate, the travel. I hate having to stay, in hotels and everything. Like, how do you think, being in the airlines has affected like your personal life?
Yeah, there's certain situations where being away can be difficult, but I think honestly the biggest thing is finding what works for you. So I'm at a company right now where we've, had periods where we overnighted, and we've had periods where we stay home a lot, right? And so it's finding the operation that works for you. It's finding whether you want to be a commuter or living in base, right? Because there are going to be certain things that arise with, saying, hey, I'm leaving my home and I'll be 2,000 miles away from it, right? Mm-hmm. But it's then you have to kind of look back and say, what works for me and how do I set myself up so that it's not this huge hindrance, right? So yeah, I think there's definitely things that are felt, right? Certain things that you may miss occasionally. But, I've been very fortunate at my airline. I have most holidays off. I'm home probably well over 20 days a month. So, yeah, it's just finding what works for you.
Okay. What's like a stigma around pilots that you feel like you want to be like debunked?
So the big thing, right, it's just kind of funny because I just actually had a friend tell me this. They were like, so what do you do? Because you have an autopilot, right? We actually do fly the airplane. Right. Yeah, we are at times, I would call us system managers, right? But we're always analyzing the situation. And so our job is never going to probably be physically fatiguing, right? I'm never lifting 50 pounds at a time. I'm never really, doing hard labor. But the thing is, it will always keep your mind going, right? Analyzing situations, looking at your fuel, looking at your weather, just really getting that big picture of the situation, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the fun thing about it is, we're always working, right? Whether, autopilot's flying or not, is that we're always abreast of the situation at hand. So,
right. One thing, like, I know it's completely different, flying like, a single engine to like an airliner, but one thing for me, specifically like in my private training was, when I first got in the airplane and I was being taught, to scan, different instruments and everything, like just the multitasking of everything. I feel like that was one of the biggest, skills that I needed to learn. So do you feel like multitasking is also a skill that you as an airline pilot, need to have?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Multitasking is huge. And then also just even get deeper in that, I think the ability to recognize and analyze situations and then determine your course of action, right? So in the airlines, we have, we may have situations with passengers, we may have situations with ATC and the airspace or the weather, right? And so it's not only understanding how the situation is playing out, but then understanding the level of response that you need to have to it. And so, yeah, I think, just to say it, like really understanding that situation, being able to multitask, being able to problem solve, right? And keep the mission on task is definitely important. So.
Okay. Well, I'm out of questions. So is there any, questions that you want to ask me or anything that you want to know?
No. Honestly, I just want to say, like, I'm super proud, and it's great to see, you steadily advancing from, last time we saw each other when we were at Tuskegee Next and stuff. So now I'm just really proud.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel like that's it. This was great. Honestly, I feel like this went smoothly. Thank you for, answering the questions, like, honestly, and, not just like, short answers, you actually like went in depth, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I will try. Yeah, I'll try, I could, give everything, but, hey, I will definitely try to, be open and honest. So I think that's what it's required, right? To bring that next generation of people up is we need, kind of a hard look at what this industry is and kind of ways that we can really make ourselves, really have access to this opportunity, right? Because it's an opportunity for, I would say, years have been shielded from us, right? So let's really kind of give an honest look at it so that we can really help people get into it. So.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. If you haven't already, I'll send you, the website link to Left Seat Club, and I don't know if you're on Instagram. I'll send you the page too, so you can check it out. And I'll keep you up to date with everything too, because I feel like, I'm like myself, I'm not the best pilot, I'm not the most knowledgeable pilot, but I feel like I want to, have a network of people, you know what I mean? So if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to, know what it is to fly in Alaska, I'll be like, oh, great. Like, Kevin here, like, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's a big thing that I personally want to keep is just, the relationships, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I'm with you on that. Like, I fully understand it, because it's the same for me. I don't claim to be the best pilot or the most knowledgeable pilot, but like you say, it's the ability to, one of the things that you learn about being a captain, right, is you may not know everything, right? But you have to know how to get to the information that you don't know, right? You have to be able to seek it out, right? So I may not know, oh my God, the 1700 page of this document says this, but I need to know what's generally at the 1700 page of that document, right? Or at least know how to get to it. And so it's like you said, using your resources, building those connections that, will really make you successful. So,
right. Well, I feel like that's everything that I wanted to touch on, and even more. So I feel like that's it.
Good. Well, yeah, you have a great day.
All right. Take care.